Hey everyone, I hope your holiday season is going well and you all are staying as safe as you possibly can. Just wanted to welcome you here to the last episode of 2020. On the last episode of the podcast, I know we talked a little bit about the 49ers and sports and kind of how it's had an impact on the way that it's changed the way we live this year and also just changed the way that we've thought this year in particular. Today, I kind of wanted to take those thoughts and take a deeper dive into it and look particularly at the 49ers. Again, right over here, and what it's like to be a huge fan of the team. So the essential question for this week, what is it like to be a die-hard fan of sports? To answer this, I brought on one of the most respected voices of 49ers Twitter, Vish Kumaran. Vish is a die-hard 49er fan like myself, and during this conversation, we talk about why we became fans and some of our favorite athletes that have worn the 49er uniform. In addition, we talk about some of our favorite stories of being 49er fans, along with the current state of the team, as well as addressing the well-known 49er QB situation. It was a pleasure to talk to Vish, and if you're a big 49er fan and you haven't already seen him on Twitter, go ahead and follow him at Vish Kumaran, and as well as go ahead and subscribe to his YouTube channel where he talks more sports, NFL and NBA, with his friend Blake. Their channel is called Blake and Vish Sports. I'll link it down below here in the on the YouTube version, and I will also link it in the Spotify version. So please go check them out. They're really awesome, and if you're a big sports fan, they're a must subscribe. Without further ado, though, here it is, the last podcast of 2020 with Vish. What it's like to be a diehard sports fan.
We're live with the 5th episode of the Essential Question podcast, coming to you live from my parents' house. I'm Anuj, and today I'm honored to have, as my friends have deemed him, the Indian Adam Schefter. Vish, what's up, man?
What's up? What's up? It's a pretty funny nickname.
Yeah, dude. A lot of my friends, big Niner fans out here in the Bay Area, and a lot of my friends have just loved your and Grant's content, and they have given you that nickname, so...
Well, I'm glad to hear that. It's really nice to hear.
You're on the come up, bro. But let's get right into it. Vish has limited time, so we're just gonna, hop right in. So today, I figured the essential question would be, what does it mean to be a diehard sports fan? And I guess what both me and Vish have in common is that we're both big diehard Niner fans. I got my jersey on, Garoppolo. But Vish, would you like to quickly introduce yourself to the people that are watching that don't know you?
Yeah, I'm Vish. I'm a big Niners fan. I'm 21. I've been a Niners fan since I was about 4 years old. Die hard. I can't remember missing many games over the last 17 years or so. I feel like I've watched almost all of them. I kind of built my schedule for college. Like I built my weeks about getting to Sunday and keeping the entire Sunday free to just watch football and enjoy it that way. So that means if I have to spend a couple extra hours on a Wednesday or Thursday working with my school stuff so I don't have to do anything on Sunday, I do that. So yeah, I mean, the NFL has kind of been the thing that it's been my go-to the last 3 years or so. Like, hey, if I want to do something in my free time, it's I want to watch football.
Yeah, man, that's definitely relatable. Like I've been watching Niner games not quite as long as you have, just because like I got into it because of my brother and stuff, and he got into it more so like when they started to get like decent, which was like that weird 6-10 season. I think 2009 was it. Mm-hmm. With Singletary and like how the Seahawks made the playoffs in 7-9. So that was like the first season I really got into it. But like as soon as you just like get into it, like it's been like a blur. Like I feel like it's been like 11 years, which is insane. And like you were saying, like I build my whole schedule around it. Like every time my family's like, oh yeah, let's do something on Sunday. I'm like, nah, like I got Niner football. Sorry.
Right.
Yeah. Which, does create a lot of havoc in our house, but both my parents understand because both me and my brother are like diehard Niner fans. But, it is what it is. And I guess my first question, which leads right into it, is how'd you become a Niners fan and who really got you into it? I know we talked a little bit about it like off camera, but yeah.
Yeah, it's all my dad. My dad, so he's immigrant to this country. He's from India, but I was born and brought up here my whole life. And my dad came here. He was doing his PhD at NASA in aerospace engineering. And when he was doing it, this was early 90s, height of Niners-Cowboys rivalry. his roommate happened to be a Cowboys fan. And the way he tells me the story is that he started following the Niners just to tick his roommate off, like just to say, look, the Niners are better than the Cowboys. And then it became a thing for him. And he's a big sports fanatic in every sense of the manner. So he got really into football. And I remember, I have kind of a weird memory in the sense that I remember a lot of distinct things. So, like, even though I wasn't really that conscious, I remember when I was 2 or 3 years old, me and my sister arguing with my dad over the TV remote. Well, because, he just wants to watch football. And I watched one football game with him for the first time. The first game I ever saw was a wild card playoff game. Mark Bulger's Rams versus Matt Hasselbeck Seahawks. I think it's the year before they went to the Super Bowl with Sean Alexander's MVP year. This was when they had Walter Jones, Steve Hutchinson. They used to run the ball left all the time. Right. This was that team. First game I saw, and I kind of got hooked ever since. My dad being a Niners fan really got me into Niners fandom. And when I was little, I used to get every football book I could get my hands on and all. Then I would memorize everybody's statistics. I knew Jerry Rice's statistics when I was 5, and I had no connection to Jerry Rice. So I was kind of a cool party trick that way. Adults would be like, hey, which guy in 1992 led the league in receiving? And I'd be like,
oh, you were like the encyclopedia kid.
Right. It's stuff that if you ask me now, I couldn't recall, but I knew it then. And I got super interested that way. And then it just kept growing and growing. And it's always been my number one, if you ask me outside of what I actually do, like my hobbies, it's always been the thing that I look at and say, I love watching football. I love talking about football with people. I love analyzing football. I just like it.
For sure. For me, I didn't have so much of that history, because none of my family was into the Niners in the 90s or the 2000s. It really kind of started in that late 2000s. So I had to kind of go back and watch all the history, I would watch, when I first got into Niner football, I would go back and watch those specials on NFL Network with America's Game, 94 Super Bowl, America's Game.
I loved America's Game. Yeah. I was a big America's Game fan.
Yeah. And just
I love the presentation as much as I love the story.
Right. It's incredible. I just love how they built it up, and I actually went back and watched recently, a couple weeks ago when I was down on the Niners. I was like, I need some inspiration to continue to fulfill my fandom. And I went back and I think it was, what was the team? I don't remember the exact year, but it was they had the team meeting with Ronnie Lott. And that invigorated the team, and they went, they won, I think they won out the rest of the season and went and made their Super Bowl run.
I know what you're talking about.
You know what I'm talking about, right?
I think it's either 88 or 84.
Yeah, I watched that, and I was looking at our Niners record. I was like, let's go. Fred Warner calling a team meeting. We got to do this. I remember texting my brother, and he was like, yeah, it's not going to happen. And but, it's cool to learn about, the history and, where this team has come from, and just to, see it now and compare and everything. And that's why I love Grant and Lowell when they do their podcast. It's so cool to see Lowell talk about the past and Grant kind of just in the present and just how they kind of build off each other. I think that's super dope.
Yeah.
So this isn't just another quick question. Are you a fan of any other sports teams? Are the Niners your primary?
Yeah, the Niners are my primary. I'm a big basketball fan and I'm a big soccer fan because I grew up playing soccer. That was my sport.
For sure.
I played it since I was 5. I swam too, but I quit. Once swimming and soccer started clashing, I wanted to play soccer. It's my first passion. If you asked 8-year-old me what I wanted to be when I grow up, I'd have told you I wanted to be a soccer player. I liked it that much. Just so happens that you can't be a 5'11", 140-pound skinny Indian kid and have that kind of success, especially if you're not the most aggressive player.
What was your position?
I played everywhere growing up, but I really settled into playing an outside mid role.
Oh, for sure.
In my high school years. But before then I was kind of positionless, which it was kind of hard when I first started trying out for high school and stuff. It was well, where am I going to play? I've played everywhere growing up, but
that's cool.
Side note, but so going back, I'm a big Pistons fan. Chauncey Billups was my favorite player when I was little. Yeah. I'm a Pistons fan, but it's hard to be a basketball fan and be a fan of a team the way the NBA is trending these days. If you're a Lakers fan, you can share that kind of pedigree and stuff with the team, but you can't do that if you're a Pistons fan. So
Yeah.
I'm more watch basketball for the players. You know, I like watching LeBron, I like
Mhm.
Kawhi, I like Kevin Durant. Like, even though he ticks me off because of what he did. So I just like watching players like that. And then when it comes to soccer, I'm an Arsenal fan.
Right.
Again, there's not a lot to like there, but because I played, I also like watching play styles. So I'm not the Arsenal fan that just hates Liverpool. Like, I
Mhm.
like watching Liverpool play. I like the way they play. I like Klopp. I like Mo Salah. I think Sadio Mane is as good as
Yeah.
anybody in the world. So yeah, I just, besides Messi, Ronaldo, obviously. So
Mhm.
yeah, for me, football I think would be my primary. Where when you tell me like my loyalty with the Niners is unlike in any other sport.
Yeah. I mean, for me, like, it's just like kind of based on where like I grew up, you know, like born and raised in the Bay. Like, it's just been like Niner Warrior all day, every day. Like, my first memory like with the Warriors was like, I think it was 2009 or 2010. It was like Steph Curry was playing the Toronto Raptors, and both of them were just such shitty teams at the time. And it was like, I swear to God, like, that was like magic on screen, just watching Curry just hit threes from like 30, 40 feet out. And it was just like, wow, like, I like that guy. And it was like, I want to be a fan of him. And like, I guess like for me, a lot of it has to do with like location and community. Like, I'm a big location community guy. And you know, like being, again, brought up in the Bay Area, like I'm very proud of where I'm from. And so like, you know, got to have all my posters up. And I feel like I feel like it's interesting when you talk about like team identity and like where they come from, you know, like I see it with the Niners, like, you know, yes, like the Niners are based in Silicon Valley, which is like a very like white collar environment, but they have that like that fight and that grit, which is like, you know, Silicon Valley is one of the places in the world that's like a majority, you know, immigrant population. And like, there's a lot of, like, my parents are immigrants, and like a lot of people who've like built their way up to get to that life, you know? So I could like kind of see like the identity of teams and how it like conflicts with like the location, you know, like you look at Detroit, like you were talking about, like it's a tough city. And like you look at the 90s bad boys, like they were just tough guys. Like, that's just an interesting concept. Like,
Yeah, I mean, there is something to that, right? Like,
yeah,
if you like take the Chicago Bears,
right.
I've been deemed a Bears hater a lot in my life. A lot of
Which is
times
ironic because you're from Chicago.
I mean, yeah, a lot of times I just talk smack about the Bears with people
Yeah.
at school and stuff just to get a little sports conversation going. And I just really didn't like the Bears, but they haven't had a franchise quarterback in their history. At least I've never, not that one I know of. People say Sid Luckman, but does he really count? I don't know. But, you know, they've had a few successful teams built on running game, playing defense, super physical. They're really physical up front, that kind of thing. So, yeah, what you're saying does make sense because Chicago is a very blue-collar city. It's Midwest. Right. It's cold.
Yeah. How's the weather out there? Is it cold right now, like December?
Actually, it's not too bad, you know. It usually gets colder. I feel like it hasn't been that bad. Granted, this is probably the least I've gone outside during this time in my life. So
right, you're gonna hate me for saying this. We have the heater on in our house, and it's 60 degrees in NorCal.
I mean, I don't mind that.
Anyway, I was just gonna ask you, like, I bet this is something you've thought about probably a lot of your life, but like, rank, like, if you had to, like, and no particular order, like, rank your top 5 like favorite 49ers of all time, just like based on like how you connect with the athlete, you know, like if you like your 5 favorite 49ers, no order.
Jeez, that's a tough one. That's actually one I've never thought about.
Really? Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I like all the Niners players to such a point that there's like only like 3 or 4 players I haven't liked over the years, and those are usually the guys I think about. But if I was to rank them, definitely a guy that would be on there is Michael Crabtree for me. I used to watch college football a lot more than I do now, but I remember watching college football in 2008 and Texas Tech coming on TV, and I was like, wow, this Crabtree guy's insane. And then he made the catch over Earl Thomas against Texas to win the game, ruining Colt McCoy's Heisman campaign, and I was like obsessed with him. I didn't think the Niners were going to get him. Them getting him was like the coolest thing for me. He turned out to be a little bit of a diva and maybe wasn't – or I mean, I guess he wasn't a diva necessarily, but he wasn't like a blue-collar kind of guy either. He was kind of a different kind of guy. So he didn't really connect with fans, you know. after he got drafted, especially with the whole Eugene Parker. He didn't sign right away, missed the first 6 games and all of that. And then the 2011 championship game when Corey Webster put him in lock and key.
Yeah.
But for me, he was always a player I rooted for. I always liked him. I cheered for him when he went to Oakland. And I thought he had a good career overall, but he's definitely a guy that makes my list.
For sure.
Number 2 is my current favorite player in the NFL. I think he's my favorite player on the 49ers, and he has to make this list. He's up there is Deebo Samuel. I love Deebo Samuel. He's my favorite player in the NFL. I love everything he represents. My third favorite player probably would be Navarro Bowman. I was a big Navarro Bowman fan. I thought he got robbed of Defensive Player of the Year in 2013. He was one of the best players I've ever seen. And it's funny because everybody forgets, right? And I love Fred Warner. He might make the list that we're making right now.
Absolutely.
One of my favorite players. But people just throw out these comparisons so quickly and so
I don't think you can,
He was better than Bo. Bo was a 4-time All-Pro in 6 years.
Right.
And 3 of them were first team. Pat was 5-time first team All-Pro in 7 years. Like, those kind of accolades, like, very few people live up to them. And, Fred Warner is really great. He's the best linebacker in the NFL right now, middle linebacker, arguably. And he's hopefully going to be that for the next 10 years. But to say he's better than what they are now, for me, is a little.
It's a little stretch. It's a stretch. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's 3. That's Deebo, Michael Crabtree, Navarro Bowman.
Right.
I'm trying to think. I mean, can you make a list about favorite Niners without Frank Gore? Come on.
Yeah. I agree with you.
Yeah. So Frank Gore would be there for me. And then the 5th guy for me is going to be Aldon Smith. Aldon Smith, he didn't have the Niners career I wish he had.
Mm-hmm.
He had a lot of problems. Seems that he's gotten over them. That's amazing for him. But
we're going to see him tomorrow.
I've never seen somebody just walk into the NFL and dominate the way Aldon Smith did. And, I was lucky enough to get the opportunity to talk to Jaquaski Tart. I
was going to ask you about
Jimmy Ward are pretty close to making this list, to be fair. But I got the opportunity to talk to him. And in that interview, I asked him, hey, who do you think is the best player you've ever seen on the football field? And he spent 2 weeks with Aldon Smith in training camp. And the most telling thing to me was that he said it was Aldon Smith. So Aldon Smith makes the list for me. So my 5 favorite, I mean, it's so hard because I feel like I left out so many guys I love. But it's Michael Crabtree, Deebo Samuel, Navarro Bowman, Frank Gore, and Aldon Smith.
Yeah. I mean, I'll go through mine real quick. You gave such a nice detailed explanation. Honestly, for some of these guys, it's just like I like their vibe, and I just kind of go based on that. But my number 1 favorite Niner of all time, I think this is someone you've talked a lot about on Grant's show. One of my favorite, just individuals, absolute class act, Alex Smith. I mean,
oh yeah,
he is the epitome of what I would want, if I ever have kids, my child to grow up to be. He is just such a fantastic individual. When he would he just went through crap with the Niners too for 6 years, all the different offensive coordinators, all the different systems. And I feel like it's weird because I feel like the organization as the Niners didn't necessarily treat him that well.
No, they didn't.
But the fan base just adores Alex. I mean, I
don't think
really.
Go, not to interrupt you.
Go for it.
One great selection of Alex Smith. Yeah. I actually he was totally omitted. I didn't even think of him, but he absolutely should be very close to my list or making it. And 2, I think the fan base appreciates him now, but I don't think they particularly treated him well when he was a number 1 overall pick and he had to go through the 6 coordinators, the 2 head coaches who were not deserving to be head coaches. The Niners were a bad organization that ruined a very excellent player in Alex Smith.
For sure. No, I mean, I agree with you to some extent. I guess, what I mean by fan base is, a lot of my friends growing up, we were all big Alex fans. And, we loved the way the guy would play football. Yes, he would check it down on 3rd and 8, which pissed a lot of people off. And, it continues to this day. But yeah, I could see, where you're coming from in terms of just, the whole – as a whole. I think the Niners fan base really was pretty anti-Alex Smith. Second guy, I think, is another guy who I absolutely love, and I think the team is falling apart without him this year in terms of just leadership, is Joe Staley. Another fantastic Class A individual. When he would do the little Niner YouTube videos, I don't know if you've seen him where he did karaoke with Mike McGlinchey, some of the funniest things I've ever seen.
The Joe Show is one of the best.
The Joe Show, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so Joe Staley was another one of my favorites. I had Alden as well on that list. Just the pure talent that Alden had at defensive end. He was just so like the power, like he would just have just right off the tee, and it was just like as a fan and as a kid watching him was just incredible. Like he was one of the best like pure football talents I've ever seen. And like you said, like. He's obviously gone through a lot, like in his personal life with the DUIs and, various other incidents, but it seems to be, good for him now. He seems to be on the right track, and, I'm excited to actually get to see him with Dallas. I want to see what he can do. Hopefully he doesn't destroy us too hard. It might be a little ego blow, but, and my fourth favorite Niner is actually someone who very recently left the team. I was just crushed when John Lynch not John Lynch. I was crushed when they decided to trade him. That's DeForest Buckner. This was like last offseason, so not like very recently, but yeah, relatively recently. DeForest Buckner he was one of those guys that I just respected because no matter what the team was, if they were 2-14 or 14-2, he was just the guy that would just be like, you know what? I'm going to put my head down. I'm going to work hard, and I'm going to put up 10.5 sacks, and I don't care. And, like, that I can respect, It's just, like, no matter how bad your team is, no matter how good your team is, he was just a constant contributor to that defense. And I just felt like the Niners kind of did him a little dirty trading him. That was just my opinion. Me and my brother were both so sad when they decided to keep Eric Armstead. We had many choice words, which I will not reveal on this podcast. But, yeah, I mean, DeForest Buckner. And then, like you said, how can you have a favorite 49er list without including one of my favorite Niners of all time, Frank Gore? I mean, the guy was he was the team in a lot of ways. Like, Draymond is like the heart of the Warriors. Frank Gore was the heart of the Niners for so many years. And many great memories of him growing up. I actually have a shirt of his. That was my first Niners shirt that I ever had. And I actually got Jimmy to sign it. That's a story.
Wow.
So I went to training camp. This was 2 years ago? And 2 years ago, right before the Super Bowl season last year. So, and we were there, and it was just like, if you ever get the chance to go to training camp, it's amazing. I mean, you just get to see all these players up close, and it's really cool. Like, George Kittle's massive. Like, the man is huge when you see him in person. He's like, they like list him at 6'4", 6'5". The man looked like 6'9". He's just straight jacked. I was like, bro, what? Like, if I had to go up against this guy to fight, I would run the other way, like, immediately. But no, we got to see Jimmy, and Jimmy was signing autographs at the end. And Jimmy is one of my favorite players. Like, I love Jimmy. I got his jersey. I know you have choice words on Garoppolo, but I went and showed it. I had my Frank Gore shirt, and I was like, I just like held it out for him to sign it. He kind of looked at me weird, and he just smiled, and he just signed it. But yeah, that was my story of how Jimmy Garoppolo signed my shirt. But yeah. So
No, I don't have choice words about Jimmy. As a person, I'm a Jimmy fan. Jimmy's from like an area that's 40 minutes from my house.
Yeah.
I go to college with people that had his brother as their high school teacher.
That's so
that
cool.
know him that way and stuff. And before his brother moved to San Francisco, to move with Jimmy. So like I'm a Jimmy fan.
Mm-hmm.
I would love, like, I think every Niners, you're not a Niners fan if your reality and what you would like and what you wish for and what you dream of is for Jimmy Garoppolo to be the quarterback. He looks like he looks like the guy you want as your quarterback.
Exactly.
The guy you want.
He's incredible.
It's just unfortunate that there's a standard and a level of play that he's just not reached.
Right. I agree with you on that front. And I agree. I think personally, a lot of Niner fans are actually huge fans of Jimmy as a person. I think he's a really good guy. And I think, like, from what I have seen of him, he just, like, he does all the right things. He says all the right things. He is a competitor. He fights to the death. Like, he's great in that sense. But in terms of just him as a quarterback, I mean, you've seen kind of just the collapse from, the end of that NFC Championship game, where I call one of the turning points of his career, to the ACL injury. And then, I mean, I just, like, when I saw him against Seattle, like, he just looked like a completely different quarterback, like, from when I saw him in 2017 and he was my man crush Monday. Like, it was just completely different. And, but we can get into Jimmy later. I was going to ask you what some of your favorite Niner memories were, like in terms of just being a Niner fan. Do you have any cool stories or anything? Just like relating to games.
That's a tough question. It's right on the spot. I think the Saints game, Alex Smith running for the touchdown, that's a memory for everybody else, for everybody. For me, one that sticks out is, so I went to India in December, I think of 2013, I would like to say. 2013, yeah. And that was when the Niners played the Bucks and the Falcons. They played the Bucks in Tampa Bay with Colin Kaepernick. Michael Crabtree had a touchdown catch.
The pick at the stick.
Yeah, and then they had the candlestick game with Navarro Bowman and Colin Kaepernick. And what was really cool was when I was in India, like, obviously I can't, like, in 2013, there weren't, like, working Reddit streams in India to watch the game. So I used to get up at 1 a.m. and I would read the play-by-play on NFL.com. Cool. Why this sticks out as a memory is because I watch every game with my dad. I've been watching every game with my dad since I was 4 or 5 years old. And he stayed on the phone with me the entire game. And I would ask him, I'd be like, look, Michael Crabtree catch 10 yards. And he would describe it. Frank Gore run 2 yards. He would describe each play to me. And the fact that he had the patience to do that, and the fact that I was still able to watch the game live, even though I wasn't watching, I was able to somewhat picture what's going on, was really cool. That really stands out as a memory. And then obviously just these last two Super Bowl runs, like overall those 2 seasons, like looking back at them, the ups and downs, the excitement, like, man, like losing the Super Bowl earlier this year was horrible. It was hard to watch. Like I thought I was over that point as a fan where it bothered me that much, but I felt like throwing up after they lost the Super Bowl.
Did you cry?
No. I haven't cried over a Niners game since like
I cried. That was the one game it was in college, and we were all like in our dorm room, like in the lounge, and everyone was just like watching the game, and I had it on, and everyone knew I'm like the biggest diehard Niners fan in like our whole building, and I was just watching the game, and I was like acting out Jimmy Garoppolo's like throwing movements last 7 minutes of the game. Like it got bad. And then, like, when they lost, like, I just fucking went outside, slammed the door, and, like, went to this tree and just started crying. I was so upset. I mean, that was, like, where I was like, wow, like, I'm really emotionally involved. I need to, like, emotionally distance myself from this game.
Yeah, I had a little bit of that realization. I maintained that emotional distance for about a week. When everything in sports was talking Chiefs, and then I was back.
Same. I was back.
So, but for me, as I was saying, what I do miss is, man, the excitement. It's kind of like before you take an exam, even though you're not invested, you're not a part of this, but your stomach's doing those gymnastics, that excitement to go watch a Niners game. Like I haven't gotten that once this year since week 1, and then week 2 when Bosa and all those guys went down, it kind of felt over there, and then they kind of got back, but I didn't get that same emotional attachment,
that thrill,
that feeling, that enjoyment, that, oh my God, I'm so thrilled to watch the Niners play. They're in the thick of things. Like that hasn't been there this year. And I mean, part of it is Nick Mullins starting at quarterback is not the most fun thing to watch. It's like every game, it's like you're still cheering for him, right? You're still cheering for the guy. And every game, it's like, when's he turning the football over? That's how I watch these games. It's like, well, it's like, he's going to throw a pick. He's going to throw a pick. Every time he throws, even when because he makes some good throws every single game. And even when he makes good throws, it's like I can't even really appreciate it right away on the spot. Just because I feel him throwing one up for grabs. So he's taking years off my life that way. It's like, I thought Jimmy was taking years off my life, and he is Jimmy times 2 when it comes to turnovers, if that's even possible. So I just miss that, like we were talking about good Niners memories. Those 2 seasons were good memories, but just that excitement that you get from your team winning, even though it comes with the disappointment. I love that peaks and valleys kind of emotional roller coaster.
Absolutely.
Rather than this year, which you've kind of gotten yourself wrapped around that reality. Like this is what it is. I'm just going to let it go. I'm going to watch. I'm going to enjoy it, but I'm not going to get up and down, what's happening.
I mean, like you were saying with the whole like peaks and valleys, like people talk about great television shows and great films, right? Sports is the best TV show out there. Like it's going 24/7, 365. something is happening constantly, you know what I mean? And it's like, it's the best TV show because there's always drama. There's always, you know, exciting moments, like everything. And that's how I kind of think about like my Niners fandom and my Warriors fandom is just like, I'm watching the television show. And it's like, except this just feels more real because it's like stuff that like, it's just athletic competition. And I think that's really cool. Yeah. This is I was just going to tell like my favorite Niners story was it happened 2011 wild card game was the catch 3, I think is what we call it.
The Vernon Davis.
The Vernon Davis catch. So this is 2011 and me and my dad are watching the game and I'm like jumping up and down. I'm like, let's go, like blah, blah, blah. And it's like 9 seconds left, right? Alex Smith drops back and he drops back and he's throwing the ball.
14, I thought.
What? Was it 14? I don't remember the exact seconds. You probably can get me on that. But I don't remember.
I thought it was 14. I don't know.
I just remember 9 seconds for some reason. I don't know why. But I'll tell you why I think I remember 9 seconds. Because I remember looking up at the score and it said 9 seconds and my TV shuts off. And I'm like, what? And like my receiver like completely shut out. And this is 2011. There's no Twitter. There's no, you know, like you were saying, like in 2013, there's no Twitter, NFL streams, nothing. So I had to go to my computer or like our desktop computer and like look it up. And like, it takes a while because it's not like immediate Google, like where you can look up a Google a score right now and it will just come up like 23-20. Like you have to go to NFL.com through the play-by-play, everything. And then it was like 20 minutes later, it was like Alex Smith, complete, Vernon Davis, touchdown. I was like, like that was probably one of my all-time like favorite stories. Monday night against Cleveland last year, I was in the library. I was studying for a test. And I was just like doing my work and I thought, okay, you know what? I'm just going to turn on the Cleveland game. Like what could happen during the first play? You know what happens the first play of the game. It was just that Matt Breida 75-yard touchdown. And I started screaming in the library. I was like, let's go. Got kicked out. But, you know, it was worth it, in my opinion. It was just one of those things I'm not going to forget. But, yeah, those are a couple of my favorites. And then, of course, like I like to call it like the Jimmy 5 in 2017. Just like, I don't know how to like describe that. It was just like one of those weird seasons where it was like, we're 1-10 and we were just, you know, getting pummeled. CJ Beathard was just getting pummeled behind the line. And then like this mysterious allure of Jimmy Garoppolo just walks into the locker room and they just look like the best team in football for 5 weeks. Like, I know they beat up on some bad teams. They played Chicago that year. They played the Texans, I think.
Well, Jacksonville and Tennessee were playoff teams that year.
Right. I'm not saying that like all the teams were bad. They had great games against Tennessee and Jacksonville, and there was that 49 hours clip of Jimmy Garoppolo going through the 2-minute drill. Me and my brother have probably watched that a collective total about 300 times.
Yeah, I think that sound effects really misled a lot of people. They thought this was the next Tom Brady.
Yeah.
Just because of that, yeah.
And, like, do you remember? It was, I forget, like, during the 49 Hours video, they're playing, like, Lose Yourself in the background, and Eminem, and like, Eminem's going, and, like, Jimmy's, like, throwing the ball. I was like, oh, I got so pumped.
I don't remember that. What I do remember is him telling Marquise Goodwin, hey, just bend your route inside. Be a football player. Be a football player.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that was so funny. And then do you remember the highlight against the Seahawks where Jimmy rolls out to the left, I think? And
his first throw to Louis Murphy.
Yeah, that was just like, oh my gosh, like me and my friends at school have watched that highlight like 2,000-3,000 times. Like we were like, this guy's Montana, Jimmy Montana. Like I remember tweeting, Jimmy Montana, let's go. That tweet does not age well. But yeah.
It's still one of the best throws of his career, actually. So.
It was an exciting day. And I was just gonna ask you one more question about like the sports related stuff. We could get into more of the analytics or like the technical stuff. I was just gonna ask you, like, has being a Niners fan like made you interested in like the Bay Area more as like a whole? Like, have you found yourself more interested in the Bay or
no?
It's just
I'm not a Warriors fan. I'm not a Warriors fan at all. I'm a basketball analytics guy and all of that, but I'll say it right now for your podcast. I think I'm going to lose a lot of fans right here.
Yeah.
But I don't have that many to begin with. I'm not a big Steph Curry fan.
What?
Yeah, I'm so one thing you have to understand about me is I'm very anti-national media. I hate how the national media pumps up certain players and doesn't pump up others. It really bothers me because I think there's no merit to who they pump up.
Right.
It's just based on who they like and why they don't like other guys. And my problem has always been where when Steph Curry does the mouth guard chewing and the shimmying and the throwing the mouth guard and all of that, it's always been deemed cute, lovable, and it's always had a positive connotation around it. But with other players like mean mugging and all of that, it's always been, well, he's not a team guy. He's selfish.
I get that.
He taunts other players. He's a trash talker. All these things. I don't like that duality of two narratives. And my second thing with Steph Curry is that I think that his achievements often get so overblown. Like, people say he changed the game of basketball, but the game of basketball was trending towards three-point shooting. Even like, look at the way the Miami Heat played in 2012. They were playing small with Chris Bosh as a center and Shane Battier as a center already then. They used to have lineups with LeBron as a center. So it's not like basketball wasn't trending towards that already. He's the guy that capitalized on it. And the third thing that bothers me is that people act like the Mark Jackson years didn't exist. And he's started his career since Steve Kerr came there, and that's a Hall of Fame trajectory. Where I would argue is that if you look at his skill set from a talent standpoint, numbers standpoint, team production standpoint, with Mark Jackson, he was an excellent player, no doubt about it.
I agree with you. Yeah.
Was he significantly better than what Damian Lillard is doing right now with Terry Stotts and that not very good team, being a 6th seed in the West every single year and losing in the first round, losing in the second round? I'd argue no. With what Chris Paul did with the New Orleans Hornets back in the day, taking old Peja Stojakovic, 60 games, David West, and all those guys to the second and third round of the playoffs, I'd argue no. But his achievements, because he got to play and he's in a unique situation, I feel like it's been overblown. Is he still an all-time great player? Yes. Is he still a top 20 all-time great player? Probably. But if you ask me, like, best point guards of my lifetime and stuff, is he definitively one for me? No. I feel like because the analytics community embraced him and because the media has embraced who he is, unlike for other players like James Harden, who's analytically as efficient as anybody, analytics community has not embraced him the same way they embrace Steph. Media has never embraced him the same way they've embraced Steph, even though he's taken some horrible teams very deep in the playoffs. Has he choked? Yes, but he's taken some horrible teams very deep in the playoffs. I mean, the team that the year Russell Westbrook won MVP 2017, he took a horrible team and they won 53 games. Only LeBron, I feel like, has taken bad teams that far and in the regular season and stuff before. I mean, not to talk about basketball and get on a rant. It's not Steph that bothers me. He's the ultimate great guy. He's the ultimate teammate. He's a great player. It's the coverage of Steph that really irks at me. And it's just the entire, well, why does the media choose to highlight this guy instead of this guy? What does this guy have that guy doesn't have?
I mean, I totally agree with you in terms of just like national media. And I think national media in football is utterly ridiculous. Like, I think there's just so many wrong things. But I tend to disagree with you in terms of sometimes of like how Curry has been covered in national media. He's had his fair share of doubters. I can tell you that. Like, there's particularly, I would say he has a lot of supporters. I would say like Colin Cowherd is very, very much like pro Curry. But like,
where I would disagree with you is that when you're a Curry fan, right, you see the one or two detractors of Curry as many instead of the 8. So I'm a LeBron fan, right?
Right.
And I think LeBron has a lot of detractors when he actually only has one in the national media, right? Mm-hmm. He only has one real guy who really criticizes him in the national media. So that's where I would say, like, that means like for the most part, LeBron is covered like pretty fairly and pretty positively. He's just got that one detractors. That's where I would say like, you see the two guys, you hear only the two guys that say the bad things about him rather than the 8 guys who say the positive things about him.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I get that. And you're kind of taking it like a step back. I guess maybe I'm too fanny to like even like realize in terms of just like how Curry is covered by the media. But and just I have too many positive things to say about Steph. But Steph is for another day. We can talk about Steph a whole other day. But I wanted to get into some more of the analytical questions. And I want to talk to you about like how you started like content creating with Blake and stuff, and it's been cool to watch, man. So I really like your show that you do with Blake.
Hey man, I appreciate it. We're actually going live pretty soon in about 30 minutes. That's why I had to head out. But
for sure.
If you can tune in, that'd be awesome. But,
I would, man. I would love to.
So right. Blake and I have been friends since like kindergarten, like elementary school, first
Mhm.
grade, second grade. I've known him since then. We've been friends. We always talked about football. He's a Packers fan. I'm a Niners fan, right?
That
We
sure
had a
must have been
running
fun.
bet for like 4 or 5 years about the 49ers and Packers records and all of
Yeah.
that. So we've been friends. For me, the big thing was getting in touch with Grant. You know,
How'd you do that? Like,
Grant's a guy that people, if you got to know him, you would actually really like him. I feel like people get too caught up in his football opinions. He's a really,
mhm.
really nice guy. He's as good a guy as I've ever met.
Yeah,
And he gave me the opportunity. Like, everybody wants to talk about sports, but nobody wants to put their name out there. And I was
for
another
sure.
guy who just didn't want to put my name out there. And Grant was the guy who put my name out there. And because he put my name out there, well, now all of a sudden I have a small little platform, whatever it is. And Blake and I have like talked about talking about sports and stuff. And now it was right there. It was easy, right? We didn't have to build it from the
Yeah.
ground up because Grant just gave us this
Yeah.
opportunity.
And
We started
I'm not-
creating content that way. It's been going pretty good. I mean, it's just a hobby. It's just a place to talk about sports
Mhm.
because talking about sports is cathartic for me. And yeah.
Yeah, I mean, with Grant, like what I've noticed is like as a Niners fan, when he first came on the scene, like me and my brother would watch him like 2017, 2018 when he was doing like Periscopes for the Press Democrat, and we hated him. We were like, oh my God, this guy's so negative, blah, blah, blah. But the more and more like I would watch Grant, just the more and more like I realized there's a lot more like nuance to like what he's saying, you know, and like what he's tweeting. Like he throws out these little feelers to piss off a bunch of Niner fans that don't know like what he's doing.
He enjoys that.
Yeah.
He enjoys that.
Yeah.
And
I
that's
think,
what people can't get past. But if you ever get a chance to actually talk to him, just one of the nicest people you've ever met. And here's the thing I'll say about Grant that makes Grant like awesome. It's the fact that he's open to discourse. And
absolutely.
He's open to disagreement. I've gone on his show, how many weeks have the Niners played? So the Niners have played 13 games, right?
Yeah.
So I've gone on his show for 13 weeks because I didn't go week 1. So 13 weeks I've gone on his show. And I would say that on 8 or 9 of them, I've just flat out disagreed with him.
Right.
And the fact that he's open to that disagreement and he's okay with me sharing my opinion and disagreeing with him and telling him he's wrong in whatever way I think he's wrong, it just tells you that he's a very good person that way, because most people aren't open to having someone have a different sports opinion than them. And
Absolutely.
Grant is.
No, I think like that's what I really like about Grant is that like he brings other, like he has had such an increase in platform recently with his success in Sports Illustrated, but he's brought others up with him, like you, like Bolton, who he does his interviews from in Hungary, like Jose Sanchez, Nick Newman, like all these other guys, and he's given them like their own little platforms, which I mean I think is super cool. He's like bringing other people up with him. And his own platform, and that just proves like that he's like as a person, I think he's a really good guy. I mean, to do that like is awesome. And I've actually like really wanted to talk to him just about like media and like how it works, and I've always wanted to do that, and I actually DM'd him on Twitter, but you know he's busy with the season and stuff, so
I'll let him know. I'll let him know to hit you up.
Hey man, that would be fantastic. Thank you. I really appreciate that.
For sure.
Yeah.
I'll let him know. But yeah. He's just a really good guy. Like he has no reason, you know. Like
Absolutely.
I started talking to him about sports and stuff, you know, and he had no reason to just give me an opportunity to come talk about it. And then just because he had no reason to continue to give me an opportunity to come talk about it, but he's just super nice that way, and he's just very genuine.
Yeah. And just real quick before I let you go, because you only have a couple minutes here, I was just going to do like a quick rapid fire of just like different takes that you have with sports and just like more analytical Niner questions.
So we can go till about 4:20 my time, so about 2:20 your time.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, that should be enough time, man. Yeah, thank you so much. So my first question were like, what are your thoughts on this whole Niner QB fiasco that we got going on with Jimmy Garoppolo and him potentially leaving in 2021, but also the potential to draft a quarterback in the first round, and then also the Matt Stafford theory that I think you've really brought to light?
So I mean, I feel like it's Grant's favorite topic to talk Niners QB, so it's something that I think people have heard my takes on a lot, and it's something I've rinsed and repeated a lot. So where I stand with Jimmy Garoppolo, it's not that I think Jimmy Garoppolo is a bad quarterback, But if the Rams had the money, if they had the monetary opportunity to move off Jared Goff, do you think they wouldn't take it? I think they would.
Mm-hmm.
The Niners have that opportunity with Jimmy Garoppolo. It's if you have a coach who's scheming up plays that need to be executed, where Jimmy Garoppolo misses the mark is that he's not the Ryan Tannehill, Kirk Cousins type quarterback. The guy where if I scheme up 20 throws that should get you 17 for 20 for 250 yards, 3 touchdowns, can you get me 17 for 20, 220, 50 yards and 3 touchdowns? He doesn't capitalize what's there, let alone make plays when there's nothing there. So that's where the people who really get hard on him, it's like there's so much out here for you to get. Why aren't you executing this stuff? Like, it's not hard stuff, right? It's not, hey, it's not like, oh, you have to run around and beat 3 guys and throw a 30-yard laser to Travis Kelce the way Mahomes does, or Russell Wilson to DK Metcalf. It's, hey, just drop back, read this guy. This guy's wide open. He's wide open. Make the throw. So it's little stuff like that. Where I stand is that, I mean, I'd beat it to death. I would like the quarterback in 2021 to be Matthew Stafford. I love Matthew Stafford. I think he's one of the most talented quarterbacks I've ever seen. I think his talent, I don't think people realize how talented he is. Like, this is one of the greatest arms of my lifetime, certainly. Like, the talent is, it's not Mahomes, Rodgers, or Josh Allen, but it's like that type of talent. You know, so I've always wished that we could see his talent be capitalized by a great coach, which Kyle Shanahan is, in a better situation, because Detroit sucks. Let's face it, they're a bad organization.
Yeah.
He was picked by the 0-16 Lions. Now, are they going to get him? Who knows? I don't even know if they can get him. I think their situation isn't as good as people think it is. It's not as simple as, oh, we'll cut Jimmy. Well, if you cut Jimmy and Stafford isn't available and Matt Ryan isn't available and Kirk Cousins isn't available, and let's say you're picking 13th and the quarterbacks that you value high are going off the board, and everyone says, we'll trade up for a quarterback. Well, Deshaun Watson, they traded up. They traded up to 12. They traded up to 10. Trading up to 5, 4, 3 is a totally different ballgame. Just ask the Rams with Goff and Eagles with Wentz and the the football team with Robert Griffin. So there's those factors where I don't think it's as simple as they can cut Jimmy, because they can't go into a season where you're going to have the highest paid tight end, one of the highest paid tackles, the highest paid linebacker, and just say, we're going to start Nick Mullins, CJ Beathard, and see how it plays out with the rookie. They got to have a plan, and that's why everyone says just draft a guy. But it's not as simple as drafting a guy, right? Because for every Kyler Murray, you have a Dwayne Haskins.
Exactly.
So if you're going to get Kyler Murray, then draft a guy. He'll be good the first year. You'll make the playoffs. And the second year, you can be thinking Super Bowl. But if they don't get that guy, and it's like, because this is not a win, we can win in 2 years just because of Kittle's age, right?
Yeah.
Kittle's body is taking beatings because of his play style.
For sure.
How many years can you rely on this? This is a win-now team. It has to be now. They can't waste next year. So I'm super intrigued on what they do, but I don't think it's a situation that you can just look at and say, well, if they move off of Jimmy, they're going to be good to go.
No, I agree with you, man. I really – like, as much as I like Jimmy as a quarterback, or as a person, I think as a quarterback, like, he's just obviously not cutting it. Like you were saying, he's missing wide open reads, like, just very, like, mistakes that shouldn't happen with a quarterback that's getting paid $27.5 million a year.
Right.
And clearly there needs to be a solution, but it's about finding out, like, what that is. And I guess, like, the early draft crush was Zach Wilson. Like, everyone was like, Zach. But just the way that Zach Wilson has been playing, and I don't know if you saw that Fields just – I don't know if he was dealing with an injury, but I heard he had an awful game today or yesterday. I don't know the exact.
Yeah, he had a rough game versus Northwestern.
Yeah, and I think Fields is going to drop a little bit.
I don't think he is.
You don't think he will?
I think those 3 guys – I mean, you can't put so much stock, right? Everybody did this with Justin Herbert.
Yeah.
He had the one game against Auburn, then he looked bad, and then he had the other game versus Arizona State, and people were like, wow, he's getting outplayed by 2 freshman quarterbacks. Well, I haven't watched a lot of Fields. I'll be the first one to tell you. But you got to isolate, well, what's he doing? What's his offense asking him to do, right? Like, Justin Herbert was in the worst college offense. They ran 2 plays. They either threw the screen or they faked the screen and threw the 9 route down the sideline. That's all they did on their offense. But can the guy throw? How athletic he is? He checks every single box. Smart, athletic, tall, confident. He has all of those things. So
he has all the physical traits. Like,
right. So
yeah.
I wouldn't put too much stock into those two games. I think people are going to overblow it. I think you have to go back and watch. And I think all three of those guys, I'm not the biggest Fields guy just based on what I have seen.
I'm not the biggest fan either.
Can't miss number one pick.
Right.
Wilson's going to go in the top 5. Like, you can't throw the ball like that and not go in the top 5, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And Fields has been physically gifted. He's been touted since high school. I think he's also going to go in the top 5. So it's not like trading up to the top 5 to get a quarterback is really hard. It's not easy.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you on that. And it kind of has to be like a right situation, right time type thing. And you have to like figure out the financials, and there's a lot of numbers behind it.
You got to be aggressive with a lot of picks, and you have to be willing to – you have to find a partner. Like, there's other players in the top 5 that are non-quarterbacks that teams might look at and value and say, if you're only offering me one first-round pick, well.
Yeah. Okay, this is just a fun question. What is your hottest take that just proved to be completely and utterly wrong?
My hottest take.
Mine is
There's a lot, but I'm trying to think which one's the hottest.
You want me to go first?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, I said Patrick Mahomes would be a bust when he came out of college. I thought he would be an utter and complete bust. I didn't see it. And like, obviously I was a 17-year-old evaluating a quarterback at the time, clearly not an expert. But like, I saw like the obvious arm talent, right? Like they would show like, it would come up on Instagram, like those highlight reels where he'd throw like end zone to end zone and like, you know, those like crazy throws. I thought he was just like, you know, like, I don't know if you know who like Mac McClung is, and like, do you remember seeing like his high school mixtapes of how he was just crazy dunking over everyone? And he was just like a highlight reel guy. And I kind of equated Patrick Mahomes with Mac McClung in a lot of ways, just like as a highlight reel player. And I just thought like he was just going to be a guy who was all flash, but like when it came down to it, wouldn't be able to execute. Obviously I was incorrect. Look what happened. But yeah, that was just my very hot take.
I mean, I don't know if it's hot, but I thought Josh Rosen – I didn't think he was going to be the best quarterback from that draft. I thought it was going to be Josh Allen. But I think I thought he would be second or third. If I remember correctly, I liked Josh Rosen a lot. Like, I liked him a lot. I just loved the way he threw the ball. It's his balance.
He's got a pretty throw. Yeah.
I just loved the way he threw the ball.
Yeah.
And I particularly liked a couple of his choices with hats and all of those kinds of things. So yeah. I was a big Josh Rosen guy. But if I remember correctly, I was big on the other three quarterbacks too. I just didn't like Darnold. But yeah, I would say that was my hot take. I think maybe if you asked me at the time, I might have said I think Rosen's going to be the best out of them. I don't remember for sure if I said that, because I do remember I liked Allen, Baker, and Lamar a lot too.
Yeah. I
didn't like Darnold, but yeah, I did like Rosen way too much given how he turned out.
For sure. For sure.
Yeah.
And this one's from one of my friends. He says hi. He's a big fan of yours. And just big fan of your takes. He's a Patriots guy. So his question was like, who do you think is winning the Brady Belichick situation now, and who do you think in the long term will win that divorce?
I hate that narrative. That's another load of media created garbage.
Yeah.
Like for me, it's like asking someone like, which hand is better? Is my right hand better? If I cut off my left hand, will I be better if I cut off my right hand? Well, actually not even a good example, because most people have a dominant hand, right? Most people aren't ambidextrous, so not a good analogy. But the point is, I think both of them have kind of enhance each other in their own ways. Like, to be a coach of Belichick's level, Kyle is finding it out. You need an all-time great quarterback. And to be an all-time great quarterback, just ask Aaron Rodgers. You need an all-time great coach to be that level of thing. So they're both perfect for each other that way. I would probably argue that Belichick is winning it right now. I think the Bucs are tending to be a kind of a disappointment given their talent. And I think the Patriots, if they go 8-8, would have a great season given their talent. So I would tend to say Belichick. And if you said long-term, I would also go Belichick, because, Brady is going to still be able to throw the ball when he's 45, 46, 47. I don't think that's the problem. Everybody's been harping on that too much. Like, he still can sling it. He's got an arm. He's got one of the best arms, I think, in NFL history. It's just so underrated how good he's been able to throw the ball his entire career. But I think that the thing is for him is that he looks gun shy. He doesn't want to take the hits that he was taking.
Yeah.
And so that means that I think he's got 1 or 2 more years to fix this and get a chance to win a Super Bowl. Well, I think Belichick might have something long-term building, just to build another roster built around run game, defense, and if Josh McDaniels stayed, creative play calling, and get the type of quarterback that Brady was at the beginning of his career. Cheap, smart, makes good decisions, clutch, and you can win with great defense, great special teams running the ball.
Do you think Garoppolo's an answer in New England? Just to follow up.
I think he would be a good option for them.
Yeah.
I think the thing with him is that he might need maybe 1 year or like just a little bit of time to take a step back, reassess himself and all of that. I don't know where he is from a mental standpoint.
I feel like just a lot. What he's gone. Sorry to cut you off, but like I feel like what he's gone through just in the last it's been a whirlwind. His career,
he's gone through a lot
from 2017 to 2020. That man, I know he's only played 35 games, 32 games, something like that. But the amount that he has gone through in 32 games is enough to pack a real career. He is.
Right. Yeah. He's gone through all the ups. He's had the dramatic injury.
Mm-hmm.
He's had the highest of highs to getting to the Super Bowl. He's had the media doubt. He's had the media claim in 2017. He's had the entire career in a span of 2.5, 3 years.
Agreed. Yeah. That's insane to me. That's crazy. And just last question. This is from another one of my friends, big fan. He says, where do you see Saleh going as a head coach? And where do you think where do you see Saleh going as a head coach, realistically? But what would be your dream fit in your opinion?
I think realistically, I think Detroit's the job he's going to end up taking. I think that's the place he's most connected to. I think for him, the dream job, if you're any head coach, probably Jacksonville right now. Grant keeps talking about it, and I think he's right. Yeah. You're getting a top 5 pick, ton of money. I mean, Trent Baalke, Trader Trent, has accumulated They have 5 picks in the top 60. So you have all these resources to build a roster, and you have a couple of players you can build around. I like C.J. Henderson. Miles Jack is very good. I mean, Miles Jack is what everybody wants Quan Alexander to be.
Exactly.
So he's really good.
Mm-hmm.
James Robinson's showing something. They have a couple offensive linemen here and there that are something to build on.
I like Chark and Chenault too.
Special. So I would say Jacksonville would be the job if you're not getting the Chargers job.
Agreed.
With, Justin Herbert and maybe the Bengals, but Joe Burrow's injury.
That looked real bad. Just the way they described it, it just seemed like it was it felt I don't want to say career ending, but it felt like he's not going to be the same. It almost feel like he restructured his knee. It was I don't know. He's
going to get his knee back there, right? Yeah. It's going to take him some time to get back to that confidence upstairs and stuff.
But I think Joe Burrow just mentally, he gives me elite vibes. Just mentally,
I love Joe Burrow too. Yeah,
he's a very good quarterback. But yeah, man. I mean, if you have time for one more question,
let's do it.
Okay, cool. Let me scroll up. Okay, so I have to ask you. You were a Niners fan during 2016, the whole Kaepernick thing. What were your thoughts, just personally, but also as a Niners fan, what were your thoughts on how the organization handled it? This is a debate I have with my friends all the time. Yeah,
I think they handled it as good as an NFL organization could have handled it. I wish they handled it better. Obviously, you wish that, but you can't expect more from NFL organizations, the people that run them.
Mm-hmm.
My thoughts originally was, I didn't feel that strongly. I didn't even understand that it was such a big deal.
Right.
I was just not. I guess I never put into I just stood for the national anthem because other people stood for the national anthem. I put for a little bit, I did the hand on my heart too because I saw other people do it. And then after a while, I just stood. But it was just something I did. I didn't realize the significance actually or the gravity, because I'd seen so many people do so many disrespectful things during the national anthem, and nobody even reacted. How many people blew their nose during the national anthem, or how many people do all those kinds of things. So I never realized the gravity of what he did until he did it. And it just bothered too many people. I personally was always of the mindset of, if he wants to express himself in any kind of way, he should be able to. That's what this country is all about. And he did express himself. He expressed himself for a great cause. He's doing great work, hats off to him. But yeah, during that time, like, I think that's when I personally, like, if my own, like, I started understanding, like, the world around me, the way they view certain things and the way certain things are viewed and all of that. I didn't understand those things until he actually took the leap of faith and did it. And, hats off to him for having the courage to do it. And I thought what he did was fantastic. I still think, I thought he played well in 2016, better, but I didn't think he was like playing his best ball. So I was a little down on him as a player, but I definitely thought he deserved at least a backup job in the NFL and all of that.
I agree.
It's unfortunate. I think at this point, just kind of there's bad blood. I don't really like the fact that he constantly keeps putting stuff out that I'm still not employed and stuff. Like, I think I've reached a point where I totally get that he's been screwed and all of that, but he's also done some really great things in other avenues of life. And Absolutely. I just wish at some point he would just because he is the bigger person, he would stop just being petty with the NFL and just say, screw you, I'm done. I'm going to go and I'm going to continue to make all these impactful changes to other people. And because he is doing all those things, and just leave the NFL alone. Because every time he puts out the workout video and stuff, I feel like he's rehashing something where he's already been proven right. And he's way too good a person, way too smart to just keep doing this over and over again.
Yeah. And with that, I think that's a good stopping point there. Thank you so much, Vish, for coming on the podcast. I really appreciate it, man.
Thank you for having me. I'll reach out to Grant. I'll tell Grant tomorrow.
Of course. I would appreciate that. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on. For those of you who really like this like diehard sports fan type content, I know this is not what I usually do. Feel free to follow me at Essential Question Podcast on Instagram, EssentialQU1 on Twitter. I know. And then also on YouTube, feel free to subscribe, smash the like button. I know that sounded really corny, but whatever. But Vish, for real, man, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to have you on. I would love to have you on again, hopefully for a longer time.
Enjoyed that conversation with Vish as much as I did. I know that this was something a little different than what you're used to on the normal podcast, but honestly, sports is a huge part of my life, and it's really interesting to get to have conversations like these and really get to know why people are fans of particular teams and also the story behind the sport. Again, the 49ers are a huge part of my identity, so it was an absolute pleasure getting to talk to Vish, who is someone who is very knowledgeable about the team and also just as big a fan and as passionate about the 49ers as I am. If you like this podcast and want more sports content in the future, let me know. Hit me up on Instagram at Essential Question Podcast. Also hit me up on Twitter at EssentialQU1. And also feel free to email me if you hate social media at EssentialQuestionPodcast@gmail.com. Also, before I forget, make sure to follow Vish on Twitter. If you're a Niner fan or mostly a Niner fan, feel free to follow him on Twitter at Vish Kumaran. But also, if you're a huge fan of the NFL and the NBA and you just like listening to people's takes about sports, feel free to follow Vish on his YouTube, or feel free to subscribe to Vish's YouTube channel that he also runs with his friend Blake, and they're called Blake and Vish Sports. I'll link both Vish's Twitter and his YouTube channel down below. Feel free to check him out. He's a great follow. Blake and Vish Sports is excellent. Would highly recommend. And again, for me, if you guys could follow me on Spotify, follow this podcast, get notifications, that would be amazing. Also, feel free to follow me on both Instagram and Twitter for updates on when new podcasts are coming out. And also, lastly, if you are listening to this or watching this on YouTube, feel free to hit the subscribe button and also the like button. That would be incredible, and it just makes this podcast so much more visible. Thank you all so much again for listening. I hope you guys have an excellent New Year's Eve. You stay safe. And I'll be seeing you guys next week for the first episode of 2021. Don't go anywhere. It's going to be a good one.